Welcome to everybody. This is the Heart Week, and the week which is dedicated to environment. And this week serves as a very valuable tool in getting people involved in sustainability issues. So, University, as you know, started a very important path some years ago to become a more sustainable campus and to decrease its impact on the environment. This week, our university has organized a series of webinars to reflect on some key topics together with some guests, some international and Italian guests. I want to kindly ask to the technical team to share the calendar of our webinars. So we start now, we start today together with Luisa Marelli. I will introduce her in a few seconds. And today, this morning, we talk about Green Deal. And in the afternoon at 2:30 p.m., we'll talk about the topic of gamification. So the role of gamification in implementing effective tools in order to educate, above all, younger generations. And then tomorrow we will talk about in the morning at 10:30. We will talk about communicating sustainability effectively. So the focus will be on communication and the most effective communication strategies. In the afternoon at 4 p.m., we will talk about a very key and hot issue, which is the issue of global food security with a keynote speaker from FAO. Okay, so we are ready today to start our first webinar together with Luisa Marelli. Thank you to be here.
Good morning to everyone.
Thank you. The topic today is the Green Deal, which is a fundamental strategy implemented by European Union in order to deal with environmental challenges. We will talk about Green Deal, what is Green Deal, with Luisa Marelli, who is Deputy Head of Unit Bioeconomy at European Commission Joint Research Center. Luisa, can we introduce what is the topic? So, what is Green Deal? Why has Green Deal been developed by European Union, and which are its objectives?
Yes, thank you, Stefania. Good morning to everyone. It's really a pleasure for me to be here, especially in this moment, because we are at the cross-cutting with a new, I'm working for the European Commission. Sorry, before introducing the topic, but it's important to understand who I am and what I do. I am from the European Commission, but I am from the scientific branch of the European Commission. So the Joint Research Center is one of the Directorate General of the Commission, but is the one that it makes science in support to policies. So my perspective of the Green Deal and of the sustainability aspect is the scientific perspective, but linked to the policies. So how to better make policies based on science. And this is very important moment, not only because yesterday it was the Earth Day, and this is the Earth Week. So very important to highlight the importance of taking care of our Earth, our planet, and our environment. We will have the elections, so we are at a political turn, and we will be soon in June, the European Parliament elections, and it's really the moment to take stock of where we are now with respect to these kind of policies and the state of our planet. So in my talk today, I will explain what the Green Deal is, but I will start from the broader picture, so the sustainability concept. And to do this, I will start really to showing the main challenges that we are facing today, environmental and planetary challenges, and what are the responses first at global level and how the EU implemented these responses, including with the Green Deal. So if you agree, Stefania, maybe I prepare some slides to help the following my talk. Thank you very much. Okay. So I mentioned the challenges that we're facing today. Clearly, the main challenge is the increased population, the continuously growth of our population. So we started from the 50s with 2 billion people, 2.5 billion people, and with therefore a certain amount of land available for each person. Now growing, in 2010, we were already almost 7 billion, but the projections are telling us that we will reach 10 billion people easily in 2050. So you see how much the space and the land available for everyone is really decreasing. And this increased population is putting a lot of pressure on our planet and our Earth. Let me see. Okay, it works. And this is linked, therefore, to the major ecological crises that we are facing today, which are strongly linked with each other. And this relates to climate change, of course, to the biodiversity loss, and to the pollution. All this, the common denominator of all this is that we are unsustainably using our resources. So this is really the key driver for these three major ecological crises that we have to face with. Uh, so the main question is there a limit to growth? Do we have to put limits to not only increase population, but also to the exploitation of our resources? If you see these comics here, it's really explaining the large acceleration that we had in the energy consumed from the beginning of our history now to the industrial area. And you see this exponential growth, which is driven by our economic growth that has been increased with increase in energy and material use. So what is our physical limit to this growth? I show here some figures taken from the Material Flows website, which is one of the most authoritative sources to see data regarding the exploitation of all types of resources. And again, you can see from the 70s to 2024, the latest update of the data, the increase again almost exponential of the resources used. We have metal, fossil fuels, non-metallic, and biomass, the four categories on the left part of the figure. And this is the extraction of this world extraction of these resources. And on the right side, you can see the material consumption of these resources. So you can immediately figure out how largely we are over exploiting our resources. And still giving the global picture and the higher level picture, uh, I think it's very important to understand the concept of planetary boundaries. These were introduced in 2019 by Johan Rockström from the Stockholm Resilience Institute. By the way, I think it's very, very interesting to, if you Google Johan Rockström, you find some of his videos and talks and webinars in YouTube. And I think these are very, very enlightening and interesting. So I suggest you to follow him. But he led a group of scientists in 2009 to identify which were the 9 processes that were regulating the stability and the resilience of the Earth system. And they proposed this set of 9 quantitative planetary boundaries, which are very important because as long as we remain, as the humanity remains within these planetary boundaries, within these limits, we can continue to develop and thrive the generations to come. But crossing these boundaries largely increases the risk of generating abrupt and irreversible environmental changes. And you can see from this figure that we have already passed the safety threshold, which is the green boundary in the middle of the figure, of 6 out of 9 of these planetary boundaries. So this represents the limits of tolerable environmental pressures. And we have already passed 6 out of these. So urgent actions are really needed. What is the global response to these current challenges? First of all, it's important to understand that we need really strategic actions, but to act all together. So a coherent and forward-looking approach. And this approach was proposed for the first time and universally globally approved by the United Nations in 2015 with the proposal of the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs, so the agenda proposes 17 goals which are at the heart of this agenda, and it was adopted at the end of 2015, in December 2015, and calls for action by all countries, both developed and developing countries. So all countries for the first time are called all together to take actions in a global partnership to achieve these sustainability goals. There are 17 goals that are aspirational goals that covers all the three pillars of sustainability, so social, environmental, and economic aspects. And even though they are not legally binding, all the governments are expected to take the ownership and establish national frameworks to support the achievement of these 17 goals. So they go from no poverty and zero hunger to health and well-being goals, education, gender equality, clean water, clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, inequalities, sustainable cities and communities. So this is very important for the talk that we have today. Responsible production and consumption, and then climate action goal 13 is one of the broadest and most important considering the present challenges, and so on and so forth. The last goal is really calling for partnership to achieve this goal, and this is really the fundamental aspects of the SDGs and the most innovative aspects of the SDGs. This is a structure. I mentioned that it's formed by 17 overarching aspirational goals, each further broken down in with targets. There are 179 targets uh, across all the goals, and the United Nations also offer a framework for measuring the progress towards the achievement of SDGs, defining a set of 231 indicators. This is at global level. So as I mentioned, the importance of this is that both developing and developed countries are called in together to work together for the achievement of SDGs. But now I want to give you some examples on how we can achieve the SDGs. This is a report that it's quite an old report, but it's still very valid. It's a report to the Club of Rome from the Stockholm Resilience Institute. Again, the research group of Johan Rockstrom. Back to 2019, they ran some scenarios just to measure the success of SDGs achievement and to see under which conditions, which are the conditions for which necessary to achieve all the goals. And if you see that if we go on in the business as usual scenario, the red arrow, or if we continue with the higher economic growth scenarios, we will not achieve we will not be successful in achieving SDGs, but also we will move really far away from remaining within our planetary boundaries. So the only scenario that can allow the achievement of SDGs, can be successful in achieving SDGs and going towards the limits of our planet is the scenario, the green scenario, which is the one that pushes for strong transformational policies. In particular, the scenario assumes rapid renewable energy growth, accelerated productivity in the food chains, new development models, especially for the poorer countries, inequality reduction, and investments in education for all. These are the minimum necessary conditions to transform our policy and be successful in SDGs and planetary boundaries goals. Also, I'd like to mention this study as very important because it was one of the foundation for provided the scientific foundations for the 2030 agenda. And it's a study carried out by the Institute for Applied System Analysis, IASA, in Austria, but it's a highly renowned study which identifies the transformations that are needed to achieve the SDGs. And again, we mention again the big challenges, so human capacity and demography. We need education, health, aging, labor market, gender and inequalities are still seen as major challenges. We have to reduce our consumption and production. So again, over exploitation of our resources, the decarbonization, especially of the energy sector, is fundamental, is the necessary transformation. But we also need to be more sustainable in our food consumption and take care of our biosphere and our water. So forests, oceans, etc. are really important, and we need to transform our utilization of these resources. We need smart cities with decent houses for all, mobility, sustainable infrastructure, and reduce our pollution. And we need the digital revolution. Already in 2018, they were mentioning artificial intelligence. You see now where we are. So that's why I like to mention this study, because it was really innovative and forward looking. But what is here, it's still very, very important today. What is the EU responses to this overarching and global agenda? Already in 2016, so immediately after the approval of Agenda 2030, the European Commission responded and fully implemented SDGs with this communication, where next steps for a sustainable European future, where the Commission proposed to integrate SDGs into all EU policies and launch the reflection on a long-term vision on how to implement SDGs and how to monitor SDGs implementation in Europe. Then, 3 years later, we had another important communication towards a sustainable Europe by 2030. So taking stock of EU SDGs achievement, we already started measuring the progress, monitoring the progress towards SDGs, and identifying the challenges and the enablers for the transition, so that to define future scenarios. In 2020, at the time, the present European Commission, led by President von der Leyen, in its Commission work program, clearly mentioned the new political ambitions and strategies, where all the policies had to integrate SDGs, fully integrate SDGs and achieve SDGs. And this was under the responsibility of each commissioners in the different portfolios to ensure the achievement of SDGs, and how this therefore gained an even more central role in the policies and was implemented in all EU priorities. You see, these are the 6 priorities that President von der Leyen proposed in her mandate. And at the top of these priorities, we have the European Green Deal. So the political program of President von der Leyen really integrated SDGs into all Commission proposals, policy strategies, and they are mentioned or particularly relevant in each of the 6 headline ambitions of the work program. And it was up to the all commissioners, to ensure the delivery of the SDGs within their policy domain and their specific policy area, and the college, so the commission as a whole, be responsible for the implementation and the monitoring of SDGs. So I mentioned that the Green Deal is at the core of SDGs achievement. So now I want to give some highlight into this important, very unprecedented package of policies that was put in place by this Commission. The Green Deal is the main enabler for the green transition and also the foundation for implementing SDGs. It's still an economic growth strategy, but linked to important transformations and policies needed to achieve the green transition. The Green Deal is mainly is covering mainly 7 thematic areas, going from climate ambitions to clean, affordable and energy, including a renovation wave for transforming our buildings, the industrial strategy and the circular economy, sustainable and smart mobility, the need to green our cup and the farm to fork, so addressing the food system and the sustainability of the food system, but also the need of preserving and protecting our biodiversity and the ecosystems in general, and the last area, the zero pollution and toxic-free environment. So the main ambitions of the Green Deal is to become climate neutral by 2050, with an intermediate step of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 55% within 2030. Then the important goal to protect human life, animal, plants by reducing pollution, especially in cities, but not only, but also to, I mentioned that it's still a growth strategy, so to help companies to become world leaders in the production of clean products and technologies, but also, and very important, the underpinning objective is to help ensure a just and inclusive transition. So leave no one behind principle is very important for the Green Deal, because the green transition must be just and inclusive. I'd like to highlight also, quoting this text extracted from the communication on the Green Deal, highlighting the crucial role of education and training for empowering and engaging people, but also the need for reskilling and creating new skills and competencies, which are really needed for the green transition. So these are the main areas, as I mentioned, where the Green Deal will take action. So on climate, the ambition is to become the first climate neutral continent by 2050. On energy, it really pushes towards a clean and efficient energy transition. So we also need to transform our energy system. We aim to protect our environment and in particular our oceans, which are really suffering. You are very well aware, for example, of the not only of the increase in temperature of our oceans due to climate change, but also how they are suffering due to the plastics release in the water, in the oceans, and we need really to protect their biodiversity and ecosystems. For what concerns agriculture, there is a strong need to completely transform our food system to ensure a healthy food system for people, but not only for people, especially for the environment. We need to transform our transport to provide an efficient, safe, and environmentally friendly transport, especially for cities. We need to transform our industry, so the Commission proposed a new industrial strategy for a competitive green and digital Europe, where the circular economy is becoming a fundamental aspect also for the new industrial strategy, which is driven and supported by transformation in the research and innovation. So the role of research and innovation in driving all these transformations is really crucial, as well as, of course, a proper financing of the transition. So financial investments, especially and more importantly at regional and local level, are very important to ensure delivery of the Green Deal. And lastly, the last point recently added is the new European Bauhaus concept, which is the new initiative to connect the Green Deal to our living spaces, to create not only sustainable but also beautiful places to live, where well-being is at the center of our living environment. And this is the new European Bauhaus concept. Just to give you some figures, why it is so important to take actions in the energy systems, because the production and use of energy, for example, accounts for 75% of EU greenhouse gas emissions, but also buildings are very important because 40% of our energy consumption is derived by energy used in buildings. Also, actions on industry. I mentioned the importance of the circular economy in the new industrial strategy, because at the moment, currently, European industries only uses 12% of recycled material, and we really have to increase this rate if we want to limit, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, the exploitation of our resources. And also, there is an urgent need to act on our mobility, because also transport represents a large part of our CO2 emissions, especially in cities. Achieving the Green Deal will allow not only to achieve sustainable development goals in Europe and support their achievement also at global level, will ensure have us a better place to live. So having fresh air, clean water, healthy soils and biodiversity, having more efficient and renovated buildings, getting access to healthy and affordable food for all, to more and better public transport by promoting a new mobility system, cleaner energy, and longer lasting products supported by the circular economy. So, products that can be repaired or recycled and reused. And also, I mentioned the role of education, so future-proof jobs and skills training needed for the transition. This must be ensured by the Green Deal and at the global level, a global competitive and resilient industry for all, therefore also ensuring benefits from the economic point of views for jobs, employments, etc. This is a picture that we created with our SDG Mapper tool. It's a tool that we, in my team, we have created based on text mining and artificial intelligence to identify in policy documents or scientific documents which are the SDGs addressed and covered by the document. So it's a textual analysis, and we run this textual analysis on all the policies of the Green Deal, so more than 400 documents, just to give you the dimension of how large is the Green Deal package. I mentioned that it's really an unprecedented efforts by the Commission in terms of policies. And these are the how the Green Deal is addressing SDGs. So you see that the size of the bubble is proportional to the relevance of the policy with respect to that specific goal. So the goal 13 on climate and SDG 7 on clean energy, clean affordable energy are the most important ones, but also SDG 12 on responsible production and consumption and SDG 15 on healthy soil are very prominent, as well as SDG 9 on economic growth. So you see, these are the main aspects covered by the Green Deal, but practically all the SDGs are mentioned in a way or another in the Green Deal policies. So why we need SDGs? As I mentioned, that will be according to von der Leyen ambitions. SDGs will be the compass to measure the achievement of sustainability in Europe and in our policies. Will be therefore at the heart of policymaker, and the Green Deal is the integral part of this strategy towards the achievement of Agenda 2030 and its SDGs. So how to align with SDGs? We have seen the global framework, which is the Agenda 2030, with its 231 indicators to monitor the state of implementation of SDGs at global level in the different countries. But we have also our more context-specific frameworks for monitoring SDGs implementation. So we have the Sustainable Development in the European Union, so monitoring framework to monitor implementation of SDGs at EU level, at national level, at regional, and even at local level. So, for example, for what concerns the EU level, Eurostat is responsible for monitoring SDGs, and they have proposed a set of EU-specific indicators that is updated every year. So the number slightly changes It's this year it's 102 SDGs, the latest update. It was 99 3 years ago, 101 2 years ago, etc. So they are adapted, and they are used to monitor progress towards SDGs with an annual reporting of this implementation. At national level, there are national databases and statistical offices in charge of monitoring SDGs implementation, and this is the example for Italy, where ISTAT is in charge with this annual report published on SDGs. We are now running at the JRC a pilot project to see the implementation and to define indicators for the implementation of SDGs at regional level through this voluntary regional review, where some of the regions volunteered in Europe, volunteered to participate and to tell us about their experience with SDGs implementation, but this is only at the pilot phase, while much more developed is this voluntary local review, which scope is to define a set of indicators at urban scale for the localization of SDGs. Sorry. Why localizing SDGs? So what does localization means? With localization, we intend to translate the overarching and global 2030 agenda, objectives of the 2030 agenda, into local indicators. So to define local indicators, policies, actions, and strategies that can contribute to the achievement of SDGs at global level from the local and urban point of view. So this is a complex process because it implies definition, implementation of and definition of and monitoring, of strategies in the different cities that are implemented to achieve the targets. And we launched the pilot project. You see here in Europe, which are the main cities that contributed to the preparation of this voluntary local review, but this is made also at global level by the United Nations, and so you can see also some of the cities that contributed to this voluntary local reporting at global level, which is the basis to define a set of indicators for the monitoring and implementation of SDGs at urban level. So you go from the official UN indicators, the table here on the left side for each of the goal I mentioned that there are targets specified and indicators to measure the achievement of these targets, and we converted into local level indicators, typical for the EU in this case, but there are similar exercises done at global level through the voluntary local reviews. So this is a very important exercise because the implementation of SDGs and the implementation of Green Deal and therefore of the green transition must really start at local level. So regions and communities are really fundamental and are called to act together on the achievement of the transformative changes that we need. About 65% of the 169 SDGs targets we cannot be reached without strong involvement of the local governments. And also, cities are responsible for more than 70% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So it's very important to involve really cities and citizens in the implementation of SDGs. Therefore, we really need to translate the 2030 agenda and its indicators into regional monitoring systems and local and urban monitoring systems. Okay, this is a snapshot of the figure that I gave you before. So to explore the different voluntary local reviews submitted to the United Nations for different EU cities, you see how they are spread over Europe. But more in details, the JRC, as I mentioned, we are launched this SDG voluntary local reviews in the EU by defining and proposing the set of indicators that every city can use to see and to monitor its implementation towards the Green Deal, the green transition, and the SDGs. This handbook also includes some of the best practices at European level that can be used as an example in terms of data collection and for the definition of some of the indicators. I mentioned this project that we are launching at the regional level. So far, you can see here which are the regions that contributed to the definition of indicators at regional level. And from Italy, we have Puglia and Piemonte that participated to the pilot project. So their contribution and support is very important. And there are also other projects at EU level that it's worth mentioning that are supporting cities because the policy framework is really complex and the Green Deal and the SDGs set unprecedented number of targets that need to be implemented. And these are also rapidly evolving because the policy framework is in constant review and evolution. So sometimes it's true that cities are lost in translation, meaning that they really don't know how to convert and to transform to transpose EU policies into practical applications at EU level. And this is what the Green Deal Going Local initiatives from the Committee of the Regions, which we are supporting, is aiming to. So really helping the implementation of the Green Deal at local level. We have launched, the Committee of the Regions, we made the data analysis, launched this through the Ridge Hub project, a survey within their network from local and regional authorities to collect their perspective of what they think could be the future shape of the Green Deal, what they call the Green Deal 2.0, even though we don't like really this terminology that much because what we envisage is really the implementation phase of the Green Deal for the future. And we collected and analyzed the responses from local and regional authorities representing 16% of EU citizens, which is quite a significant amount of citizens, looking at the progress and the barriers towards the implementation of the Green Deal. In parallel to this, at the GRC, we also launched with my team a stakeholders consultation because we really think that citizens and civil society must really be involved in this process on the future of the Green Deal within cities. So far, we had more than 200 responses from all Europe, and this helped us to prioritize the targets and the barriers and collect good practices to propose as examples for the future phase of implementation of the Green Deal. The data analysis is ongoing because we have just closed this survey 15 days ago. And I wish to close with some examples of good practices. Since IULM is in Milan, I proposed some good practices in the Lombardy region. So the first one is Forestami, which is an urban forestry project launched by the city of Milan of planting 3 million trees, well, supporting the planting 3 million trees by 2030, supporting the overarching objective of the Green Deal of 3 billion trees achievement by 2030. And 133 municipalities are collaborating in this process, in this project of the metropolitan city of Milan. And the scope, of course, is to mitigate urban heat island in most critical mapped areas. So planting trees is one of the best practice and most important strategies to mitigate the heat waves that we are more and more affecting, experiencing in summer times. Another example is a project to restore biodiversity and nature restoration on the Varese Lake, which is a small lake, small in terms of surface and depth, which suffered a lot from cultural eutrophication. It's a closed lake and it suffered a lot from excessive phosphorus input by the surrounding areas. And with this project to restore biodiversity and nature, 4 million euros were allocated in 2021 and more to come, but the condition of the lake are now really largely improving and many of the areas of the lake are now declared as safe in terms of biodiversity and ecosystems. And then the last project on agriculture was launched in October 21, and Lombardy launched this pioneering law for urban and vertical farming, aiming at integrating agriculture into urban planning. And again, these are very important local projects to to support the transformation of the food system, to reduce the impacts of agriculture, to reduce the impacts not only on greenhouse gas emissions, but also on soil use and on biodiversity. So the use of green roofs, vertical farms in former industrial areas could be solutions at urban and local level to to promote new ecological practices and reduce logistical movements. Um, Last point I want to mention, because I think it's very popular now and also debated, the use of artificial intelligence. So I asked the ChatGPT to create an image for this specific presentation, uh, summarizing the topic of my presentation, the discussion, which are the key objectives, and to create an image to display all this and the transition that we need for the 2030 agenda and for the Green Deal. And this is what ChatGPT generated for me. I hope to leave you with this image, which is really, well, intensive, but really represents how our future cities should look like, hopefully, in the future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you because you did very complete and clear presentation about Green Deal and its elements and this package of absolutely unprecedented policies for the sustainable future. I don't know if there are some questions from persons who are watching this webinar, or if I can ask you a question, because I was very interested at the final part about the implementation at the local level of this Green Deal, and I was very interested at the barriers, because which are, in your opinion, the most important barriers in Italy for the local authorities to implement these policies, because we have seen, for instance, in these days we have seen so many articles and so many critics about the buildings and the efficiency of buildings, because a lot of local and politicians and journalists and so on are saying
Yeah.
that it is very expensive for Italians to make the buildings more efficient. So, what do you think? Do you think that the most important barriers are cultural barriers or the loss of skills, of competencies of our local authorities? Which is your opinion?
Very good question. I think very important question. That we are, it's exactly what we are looking at now in analyzing the responses to our survey, the survey that I mentioned that we have just closed, because we really wanted to collect the view of the local authorities on which are the perceived barriers for the implementation of the Green Deal. What I can say is that from a first picture, it's a mix of barriers, starting from financial barriers, because of course, financing the transition is crucial to ensure the achievement of their objectives. So all this transformation in the uh, energy efficiency of the buildings, for example, or a transformation of transport are expensive for the local authorities, and so proper financial tools are necessary and are called at all levels. And this is the first key aspect, which the Commission, in fact, is seriously taken into consideration with the several funds, social cohesion policies, and a lot of budget allocated from the recovery funds of the after the COVID-19 pandemic, etc. So this is the main crucial aspect, but it interrelates also with behavioral aspects. So citizens must be involved in the transition and the transformation, because without changes in our behavior, and especially at city level, for example, if you think to the transport system, what is the solution for the transport system? We are moving towards electric vehicles, etc., but without really a change in the way we use transport, any transformation cannot be successful. So financial, behavioral aspects, education and skills is one of the aspects that I have participated, for example, recently to a very important conference on the just transition, and from both the industrial stakeholders as well as the civil societies and the local authorities, everyone was claiming for the need of reskilling. Reskilling is very important. We are facing a transformation, the digital and green transition. So this twin transition is moving fast. Our skills are probably not going so fast, uh, or at least need to be accelerated and changed or redesigned, especially therefore the role of universities like yours are really crucial. So reskilling, behavioral insights, financing the transition are three of the most important aspects that and overarching aspects that we really need to work on.
Okay, I have a final question, and then we can see if there are some questions from the public. My question is about, yes, citizens, as you mentioned just some seconds ago. What do you think about which are the most trusted sources of information, in your opinion, in order to involve citizens and try to make them behave in a certain manner? So, do you think in Italy, I mean in Italy, scientists or politicians, and which is the role of media? Do you think that Italian media are covering the Green Deal in a correct manner or not? So just an opinion about the sources of information from your point of view.
Um, well, the problem we face in this era is the overabundance of information,
Mm,
and what we really need to do is to have a critical filtering and synthesis of this information. This is a crucial role for us as scientists, but should be also an important role for the media, etc., which, however, is not always, um, let's say, addressed in the most appropriate way. Uh, Information is largely monopolized by social media. And unfortunately, the information that arises from social media is often polarized, without any scientific basis, etc. So for the people, it's difficult to discern and to understand what is based on science and what is just a distorted
an
messages,
opinion, yeah.
an opinion. So what we always recommend is that and that's why we exist, and that's why our efforts are all in this direction, is that our policies must be based on science, on strong science. And our science can be credible thanks to peer review publications, thanks to open and transparent information, which is crucial. So always verifying the sources where the messages are coming from. And this is very important when you read uh, messages and news on the social medias or on the medias,
Mm,
because many often the sources are not verified and are completely distorting the picture. I
mm,
think this is quite important for Italy, but not only. So it's not only an Italian case. Unfortunately, it's the way communication is going ahead now. So social media are really reaching everyone, but on the other side, the origin of the sources cannot be always verified. And while would be very important. So the ability to discern what is really science-based on what is fake news. And the fake news are completely distorting the messages.
Yeah.
So sorry, and last, because what I think it's
See.
important that many of the messages are focusing on the fact that the Green Deal is expensive. It's
Mm.
true. The green transition doesn't come without a price. There is no free food, free lunch, we say, and that's clear. However, it comes with a lot of opportunities. And this must be really recognized and clearly and transparently recognized. And also, and above all, the cost of not reaching the green transition and the targets are much higher than the cost that we are facing now to support the green transition. We have seen the dramatic situation of the planetary boundaries, which are really the limits of our planet. Once we passed all these thresholds, the environmental catastrophe is irreversible, and the cost of this will be much more higher. And we are already experiencing this with the floods that we had, for example, in Emilia Romagna very recently, or with the desertification of many areas. So the impacts and the cost of climate change are really evident to everyone. Yet, some of the information is still distorting these messages, while it is important to make clarity in a transparent and scientifically based way.
Okay, so the cost of doing nothing is much higher than the cost of investing and applying the Green Deal. Thank you. Thank you so much for this final message. And okay, we have a question. We have a question from the public. Is it true that there is often alarmism about climate change and clickbait headlines? You
Well,
are
I
a
think
scientist.
I think I already replied in with many of the slides and my last comment specifically on this question. The effects of climate change are in front of us on a daily basis. So now, today, in these days, you are in Milan, I'm in Ispra, so we are very close. I am surrounded by the mountains, covered of snow. While in February they were completely dry with no snow, the closest mountain here. So people is tempted to say, but it's cold. So where is this global warming coming from? Well, this is also part an effect of climate change that with the atmospheric layers mixes changing and bringing cold air also here in unexpected moment. uh, Evidence is showing we are measuring our temperature, and there are a lot of tools to measure it, much more precise tools than before. And there is a clear evidence of the increase in temperatures. And an increase in temperature of 1 degree, for example, or 1.5 degree, that can be well perceived by the public as, oh well, but it's only 1 degree, come on, what is it? The average increase in 1.5 degree means that in Rome we can have now the temperature that we had in Palermo years ago, and in Palermo we can have now the temperature that was in Tunisia years before. It's only 1.5 on average degree of difference, and in Milan we have the temperature that we had in Rome. So this is shifting. uh, we cannot anymore say that there is alarmism in front of the climate crisis. It's really a big crisis that we have to address with urgency, with extreme urgency.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Thank you for your messages. Very, very important for us, for our students, and for our public. I think that we can close our webinar, and thank you again to Luisa Marelli for
Thank you.
her speech, very, very clear and important. And okay, I want to thank you, all of the persons who were connected, and please, the next step, the next appointment is the webinar at 2:30 about gamification in the sustainability field. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania. And really, as students, you have a big responsibility together with us, scientists. So working
Yes,
together, we can do a
yes,
lot.
we need to work together. Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.